Hi everyone, my name is Allie and welcome back to my podcast. This is episode number 4. So it has been a bit now since I've recorded a podcast. I think it's been around 3 weeks, if I am remembering correctly. But I kind of took, I don't want to say I took a knitting break or crafting break because as you'll see as we get into this podcast, I have a couple finished objects, but I more so kind of took a pressure on me to finish stuff break. I mentioned in my last podcast I did have a small medical procedure done that following week, so ever since then I've just kind of been relaxing and resting, doing a lot of knitting, but not like, putting pressure on myself to finish anything quickly for the sake of the podcast. So I took an extra week that I have been kind of doing since I've been doing about every 2 weeks. I took an extra week to really just take it easy and not feel pressured to have something ready for the podcast. But this week I actually have several things to talk about, including 3 finished objects, which is so exciting. These are going to be like my real first big finished objects after starting the podcast. I talked about my darling cardigan at the very beginning that I had just finished, but you didn't see any process of that, whereas these projects I have talked about since the beginning of my podcast, mostly at least one of them. And I'm really excited to finally share them because they are off the needles, blocked, and everything. So we will start off with my finished objects. So my first finished object that I want to share is just a really small accessory. Yeah, accessory, and it is I'm going to look at my notes here. I'm going to pronounce this very wrong just as a fair warning. The Rybka pouch is this fish pouch. It is so adorable. So I had some leftover, I say leftover, but I have more of this, lots more of this yarn. But I had a little bit of a part of a skein leftover of the Drops Air from my Rory Sweater, which I will talk about later. But I had like a little bit and I wasn't really sure what to do with it, but I saw the fish pouch and it's kind of been on my wish list for a little bit now. I have been seeing it, I don't know, I've been watching a lot of older like knitting vlogs and things, and so I don't know, I guess there was a surge in people making this or talking about this during the vlogs I was watching, and it just made me really want to make one. And it's normally not like my style, but I don't know, I think it's so cute and it's so fun, and it's a little like drawstring. It's just adorable. So I made this out of the Drops Air that I had left from one of my finished objects that I will talk about. I think I used about, I don't remember how much I had left, maybe like 10 grams, 10 or 12 grams. And so this pattern does call for fingering weight yarn, and Drops Air is an Aran weight or heavy like worsted weight. So I was a little bit worried at first because I was like, oh, I hope it's not like wildly big. I didn't do any like modifications or anything, like I didn't change the stitch count or anything like that, but I think it turned out really well. I kind of just like winged it. I mean, I obviously followed the pattern, but it's really like after you get the top part done where you have to fold in and make like a little tube for the string to go in. After I finish that, it's pretty much like it gives you estimates like, oh, recommended for this size. If you want this size, then, this many rows or this many centimeters. So I kind of just winged it until I felt like it was good, looking good. And then I did the decreases for the tail and then increases with twisted rib at the bottom. This was really fun. It was really easy. I finished it probably in about, give or take, 4 hours. I worked on it 2 separate days, so I don't exactly remember, but yeah, I thought it turned out really well, and it's not like wildly big. I feel like it's a normal size, despite using Drops Air. I used 4.5 millimeters knitting needles. For this yarn in particular, it's recommended 5 millimeters, and so I used 4.5 to size down to give it a bit of a tighter look. And then for the strap, I used a combination of Knitting for Olive and Hobie Alpaca Blaze Mohair, because I didn't have enough drops air left for the strap, but I think the white is really nice. And then I just found this pink button and I sewed it on with the little black eye. I don't know, I think it's really cute. It's really fun. It was super easy. It used up some of my scraps, which is awesome because I could have kept them because I do have plans. I have more of this drops air yarn, so I do have plans for that. So I could have kept it as like a just in case backup if I needed a few more, but I'm really happy with it. I like it. Oh, and I also want to mention I have been trying to update my Ravelry page with all my like finished objects and things that I've been working on ever since starting this podcast. So I will put my Ravelry name somewhere on the screen, and it has like all the more specific stuff that maybe I forget to talk about. Any modifications, yarn modifications, or things like that. So if you want to check it out, I have it on there. Okay, my next finished object is possibly my most exciting. Well, most exciting for me because I'm happy for it to be off the needles and able to be worn, even though it's been like 60, 70 degrees here the last couple days. As soon as I finished and it was off the blocking mat, it was like 70 degrees and sunny, which was awesome, but definitely not weather for this sweater. This is the October sweater. It was my very kind of first work in progress I had on my podcast, so it is very exciting to finally be able to share that is done and I'm ready to wear it. Okay, let me show it off here. Hopefully you can see the whole thing, but ta-da! It's a little wrinkly because I've had it folded up here on my lap, well, on my desk here. I like to, this is an organizer, not a desk, but I like to kind of keep my newest objects here. I did have it hanging up. I have like a nail up there, and I normally showcase to myself my newest objects, you know, so I can see it, but this is quite dark in the nighttime, and so it kind of freaks me out, so I had to take it down because I just see this like looming dark shadow on my wall, and it can freak me out in the nighttime. But so if you have watched any of my podcasts recently, then you know I started this October sweater pretty much after Christmas, and I've had a lot of not trouble, but more of my yarn calculations math was very bad, and I had to order more yarn, so I kind of like took a break from it just in case and things like that. But I am happy to say that I, 1, did not run out of yarn, and 2, that is finally done, and I'm very happy with it and with the color. The color might be weird because of the sun coming in from my window over there, but let me see if I can hold it up. It's called Deep Taupe, I think that's how you say it, taupe, but it's kind of like this dark, I want to say purpley. This yarn literally like changes colors every 5 seconds. It's very hard to photograph and get the color on camera because it's like a completely different color in the light than it is in the dark, but I want to say it's like this dark like plum kind of situation. I finished this sweater last week, I believe. I don't remember the exact date I put on Ravelry, but it took about a full day to dry. I put it on the blocking mats, I think in the morning, and then it was done by the next day, like in the afternoon time. So a little bit over a full day. The day I originally put it on the blocking mats, it was not sunny outside, so it was kind of just like sitting in my room in the cool shade. And then the next day it was sunny, so I was able to move it in the sun, and it dried pretty quickly after that. I wish I had a porch because then I could sit outside and have it get the nice air and the sun, but I unfortunately don't, so I have to rely on the sunlight and like just time, which is, can be good and can be bad at the same time. So I did do some modifications for this sweater, and I am actually really glad that I did the modifications that I did, because I said I didn't run out of yarn, but I would have almost run out of yarn, like very close. Let me actually go get the rest of the yarn that I have left. Okay, this is the amount of yarn I have left. I want to say it's probably like maybe 40% of the ball left or 30% of the ball left, so not much at all considering this is an oversized sweater. So let's talk about some of the modifications that I made. But I'll first begin with talking about the construction of this sweater, which I briefly talked about before. It is a top-down raglan oversized sweater. I knit this in size extra small. I believe it has about 10 or 11 plus centimeters of positive ease, or maybe it's inches. It's a lot of positive ease. So Petite Knit recommends that you size down if you want a bit more of a not so oversized fit, but I wouldn't say it's fitted at all. So my usual size is a small, so I knitted the size extra small. So you start from the back and you do, like, I think I mentioned this last time, like these, I want to say cheat, like German rows, German short rows. That's definitely not the right terminology. That's just what I'm going to call it. But you start from the back and then you pick up the shoulder, the front, the left and the right shoulder, and then you connect them. I had only done that construction with cardigans. I had never done it with a sweater, but I really like the way Petite Knit wrote this pattern to be able to do that for a sweater. So the way that you do that is you make increases here along the like bottom of the collar. So I put my collar on, I want to say either shortly before I split for the sleeves or right after I split for the sleeves. So it was kind of hard to tell at the very, very beginning how it was going to look. But once you put the collar on, it looks really, really nice. It's just such a fun little detail that I haven't really seen other sweaters have before. So once you do the increases, then you connect together here. You cast on stitches and connect, and then you work in the round from there until you are ready to split for sleeves. It is a 3-stitch raglan increase both in the front and in the back. So after you connect everything, it's pretty much just a standard raglan sweater worked in stockinette. Split for the sleeves, work the body, work the ribbing. So the body for my size recommended, I believe, 53 centimeters. So I shortened it. I think I stopped at around 49 or 50 centimeters. I'll have to check my notes. I shortened it about 4 centimeters. 4 to 5 depending on, or 4 to 3 I should say, depending on where I stopped. I'll have to check my Ravelry notes, but it's either I stopped at 49 centimeters or 50 centimeters from the back of the neck down to the ribbing. So I shortened that quite a bit, and then for the actual ribbing on the bottom of the sweater, the back ribbing is 2 centimeters longer than the front ribbing. So the back ribbing called for 14 centimeters and the front ribbing 12 centimeters. I also shortened that, so I did the back about 12 centimeters and then the front about 10 centimeters. I still wanted to keep that 2 centimeter difference because I really like the way that looks. Let's see if I can hold it up and show it off. But yeah, so this is how it looks. It's a little bit stretched because of how I'm holding it. But I really am like super in love with 2x2 ribbing right now. Like, I think it's my favorite thing ever. I don't mind 1x1 ribbing, but I don't know. I have a love-hate relationship because I don't think it looks terrible all the time, but in comparison to the 2x2 ribbing, it's just like my preference right now. So I think I may try to incorporate 2x2 ribbing anytime that I can, because I just really like the look of it. Another thing I did for the ribbing is it calls for, before you cast off or bind off, you do like 2 setup rows to make it into a 1x1 rib so you can Italian bind off. I did not do that. I just because purely because I was lazy and I really didn't want to. But again, I kind of am glad that I didn't do that, because I'm pretty sure I would have had enough yarn, but on the off chance that I didn't, it could have been like the bit of extra yarn that would have pushed me over not having enough yarn, if that makes sense. So in Kutova Kika's Darling cardigan, she does a bind off, which I will have to find the name and put it up somewhere on the screen because I have forgotten it. I remembered before I started and then I forgot. But basically you take it's a sewn bind off, so you take your needle and you insert it purl-wise through 3 stitches, and then you take the first stitch off, and then you just kind of keep doing that over and over again. And it creates this like really cute, like, I don't know how well it's going to show up on camera, but like little bump kind of thing at the bottom of the ribbing. It's very stretchy. It does not, like, it's not stiff or anything like that, like a regular knit cast off. But I don't know, I really like the look of it. I felt like it was I guess what I should say is that sometimes when I'm doing an Italian bind off, it can be a bit sloppy because I can get a bit confused sometimes, but I really like the look of this, and it kind of gives that same professional-esque look to the bind off, so I really like that I changed it to that instead. And it was a little less work and saved some yarn. But that being said, I also did the same thing for the sleeves. So the sleeves I knit to the recommended length, which I think was 29 centimeters, 27 or 29 centimeters from the underarm, while working decreases along the way. So I worked a total of 7 or 8 decreases at 9 row intervals. So that's what I did. The sleeve is not very tapered at all. It is not a tight sleeve, but I feel like it fits because the body is so oversized. I feel like having any tighter of sleeves might look a little bit weird. So I found that it was really nice and just what I had envisioned and wanted for this sweater. For this sleeve ribbing, it is the same 2x2 ribbing, and I also made the sleeve ribbing about 10 or 12 centimeters to match the ribbing at the bottom. I think it was 12 centimeters I did. And then I did that same bind off here, which you might be able to see a little bit better. So it just creates these like really nice tiny bumps that you can't really see from afar. They're not like, they don't like stick out or anything like that kind of bump, but I don't know, I just really like the rounded kind of look of it, and it was a lot easier than the Italian bind off in my opinion. I just felt like it went by quicker, and I like the end result. So that is my October sweater, and I'm really happy to have it done. The weather is going to be cooler this week, so I'm hoping I can wear it out finally. I wore it to the mailbox the other day after I took some pictures for Instagram, and it was really nice. I really like it. I will say the fabric is a bit itchy, and I think it's just the wool, but once I wore it out I wasn't outside for very long, but it didn't take long for it to like warm up against my skin, and after that happened, there was no itchiness. So very happy to have it done, and very happy with the final product. That's the word. Can't talk. Okay, my next finished object is a test crochet project that I had recently finished. I talked about it in my last podcast episode, and I have finished it since. I will kind of briefly talk about it because I do have a full video coming out about it, probably next week. Whenever the pattern is released, I will release my video as well. But it is the Rory Sweater by Jewel Makes. So this is a crochet pattern. It is, ta-da! This is the neck. It is another kind of like oversized fluffy sweater. I'll put some better pictures of like all my projects as we talk about it, because I'm really bad at showing projects. This is what it looks like. This is a top-down raglan style crochet project. It is made to measure, and it is you can kind of do any weight of yarn. And I chose Drops Air. I really enjoy Drops Air, and I enjoy both the finished kind of feel of it, the actual like yarn, the price of it, and it's just, I think it's really great. I like it a lot. So basically for this sweater, you start with the neckline, you work in a crochet rib and in a flat crochet rib, and then you connect, and then you work out from there. So this is kind of raglan style where you do 4 sets of increases, both in the front of the shoulders and back of the shoulders, and then you split for sleeves, work the body, work some ribbing. Basic sweater construction, I would say. So this is what it looks like. I really like it. I really like this yarn. I was very worried about it being too thick. I have never crocheted with wool yarn before, and I had never crocheted with Aran weight wool yarn before, so I was very nervous that it was going to be too thick and too like heavy, but I think Drops Air was like the real perfect choice in this sweater, because I think if I went for like a normal Aran weight, it would have been way too much. Drops Air is it's a blown alpaca wool blend, and it's just very lightweight. Like, I mean, it's literally called Drops Air, and I agree with it. It's very airy. So I'm very happy with my choices. It was the 2 recommended yarns was Drops Flora with a mohair or Drops Air, but I think this is really fine in any gauge or any kind of yarn. You just have to make, the adjustments according. Obviously, if you have some thinner yarn or smaller yarn, you're going to need to do more increases and more rows and things, but if you do a chunkier yarn, you'll need less of that. I really enjoyed working on this pattern. It worked up so quickly. I did it within a week, and it's a very simple design. It's just clusters of double crochet, and then normal half double crochet rib, which is just totally easy peasy. I was a little bit worried when I originally finished this because it was quite, not tight, but it was definitely more fitted, especially around the waistline, the waist ribbing area. It was quite tight, and I kind of made a mistake, and this was totally my fault. So for ribbing in general, whether it's crochet or knit, it's recommended to go down like a hook size or needle size just to get it a little bit tighter and neater. And so I did that in the neckline. I did a half, I think I did 4.5 in here, and this is recommended for a size 5 crochet hook, so I did 4.5 for the neckline. And I didn't realize this until I was literally done the sweater, and I was finishing recording the video about it, and I realized that I messed up. It's not like the biggest mess up, but it explains why the bottom ribbing looks so much tighter than like everybody else's. So I went down a hook size, but I went down a whole hook size instead of a half. So instead of doing the 4.5 that I had done for the neck, I did a 4. So it's technically like 2 sizes down, and you can kind of see the difference. So this is the bottom, but then this is the neckline. So it's like not the biggest of deals, and I honestly am glad that it is at the waistline, and I did the same thing for the sleeves. I'm glad it's at those 2 instead of the neck, because I really like the way that the neck is kind of open. It's not tight around my neck at all, and I did that on purpose, because you're supposed to make it kind of where it's snug, but not like too snug, but I did mine a little bit extra big. But yeah, this is my Rory sweater. I wore it out to the park the other day. I went out early, and I know this is so funny because I literally was just talking about how I didn't think it was cold enough to wear my October sweater, but I wore this out on one of the days that it was like 60 something, but I thought it was really great. I didn't get hot like at all. It is a much airier construction. It's less heavy too, so I think that really helped. But I enjoyed wearing it out. It's not itchy at all on my skin. I really think I prefer alpaca when it comes to kind of the mohair situation. Like, I would rather have a alpaca than a mohair, or a yarn with an alpaca blend in it than having to hold double with the mohair. My cat is here. He's confused because he just woke up from a nap and I was not there with him. Hey, Clown. But yeah, that is the Rory sweater, and I will have kind of a very in-depth whole process of me making it, hopefully next week whenever the pattern gets released, but I do have some pictures, and I'm going to share some more reels and pictures soon over on Instagram about it. So the pattern is yet to be released at the time of recording this. It is Monday, March 3rd. I think it's the 3rd. It's definitely Monday, March 3rd. Okay, so I think the deadline for this is the 8th or the 9th, so sometime after that, the video will be out with my full process and everything, all my details and stuff like that. Okay, now let's talk about my work in progresses. I actually have 2 work in progresses. Well, technically 3, but one I haven't worked on at all since my last podcast, so I'm not going to include it in this podcast because there's no update on it. I haven't worked on it. So my very first I'm going to talk about is another accessory item. This is a birthday present for my roommate. I had originally planned to give her gloves for Christmas, except I just like never got around to it, and I made like the mittens from the Tin Can Knits, the world's simplest mittens, and well, she liked them. She really wanted some like fingerless gloves, and I kind of had made the mittens on a whim, like, oh, I'm gonna surprise her, but I wasn't sure. So anyway, she requested some fingerless gloves because she often works early in the morning sometimes, and it's still quite cold here. So having fingerless gloves while she drives to work and being able to wear them at work is really nice. So that is what I am making for her. I am making the penny gloves by Petite Knit. It's a pattern I stumbled across earlier in the winter months, both for my roommate and then also just as a good glove reference. I've seen a lot of people recommend these gloves, and it is Petite Knit, so she is quite popular, but I really like the look of them, and I like the idea of fingerless gloves, even though I know that my hands will suffer because my fingers get quite cold all the time. But I also don't really love the idea of mittens either, because I feel like my hands will get too stuffy. So my plan was to make these for my roommate, and then if I really liked how they came out, I have yarn to make myself a pair too. So I have one done, and then I'm at the point where I need to break for the thumb, start the thumb increases here. So I am using a combination of Knitting for Olive, Cotton Merino in the color Cream, and then I'm also using Hobie Alpaca Blaze in the color White as a mohair. My original plan was to hold Knitting for Olive double and kind of adjust the gauge on that, because my roommate at first, she wasn't really into the idea of mohair in her gloves, because mohair can be a little bit itchy, and so I didn't buy any mohair. But then when I was kind of fooling around with it, I tried with one strand and was like, oh, maybe it'll be fine, I'll just, adjust the gauge and stuff like that, but it just wasn't working out very well. So I started making it with the mohair, and then I waited for her to come home, and I asked how she felt about it, and she really liked it, and I really like the Hobie Alpaca Blaze. I believe it's a blend. I have my thing over here. Okay, so it is 40% acrylic, 30% alpaca, and 30% polyamide. So it is not fully mohair. Well, yeah, I guess it's not mohair at all because it doesn't have wool in it, but it is just really nice and soft. It's not scratchy at all, but it has a bit of structure. Like, I feel like more structure than normal mohair has, I guess because of the acrylic in there. But regardless, I think it works out really nice. It's not too fuzzy. It's like just fuzzy enough. And I will try them on my hand, and I just really like them. I don't know. I think they look well, they fit well. Again, not itchy at all. Perfect for the kind of, now we're getting to spring because it is March. So it's perfect for those still cold mornings where it's, you know, cold but not like bone chilling cold, where you can have your fingies out. So that is a gift from her. I'm really excited. I really like it. It works up very fast. I did my first glove. I worked on it over a couple of days, so if I really sat down and focused just on that, I could finish it probably in a day or two. But I am kind of at the halfway point with the other one, so we'll see if I can finish it today or tomorrow. Her birthday's not till the 16th, so I have quite a bit of time left. But that is my first finished object, and it's a gift knit for my roommate. My second my second work in progress is something that I have been wanting to make, and I'm happy to announce that it is the Darling Wrap from the Knitting for Olive book. I know it doesn't look like much, but trust me, here she is. And these are the straps. Do you see this brown? Do you see it? So I was really looking for the perfect brown. I have this obsession with chocolate brown right now, and I need it in my life, and I knew for a fact that I wanted this wrap to be chocolate brown. And I had seen many different nice fingering colors, and I almost gave in to this like really gorgeous dark, not dark, but kind of medium sagey green. I almost gave in. But then I saw this brown. And this is by Cascade. So this is Cascade 220 fingering. And it is kind of like a lighter brown. It's not dark at all. Really, it's more of like a neutral middle brown. I believe it is called Walnut Heather. And it does have a little bit of heathering in it. I don't know if it'll pick it up on camera, but not, I wouldn't call it like, it's not speckly or anything like that. So I saw this and I was like, wow, this is gorgeous. Because I've seen a lot of browns out there, but so many are so like either warm toned or cool tone, and I just wanted a neutral brown. Neutral as brown can get, in the middle of everything. So I saw this and I was like, wow, this is really gorgeous. And originally it's a little bit lighter than I had like anticipated, but then I went to another yarn shop and I saw that they had Knitting for Olive mohair in this gorgeous bark color. And I thought to myself, would this look good with my Cascade yarn? I wasn't sure because this was, I mean, it's a couple shades darker than the actual brown that I have, as you can see. And I would say this is maybe a little bit warmer, not warm, but like a little bit warmer. So I was very worried, and I didn't have this yarn with me. It was like a completely different day. And so I was like, okay, let me get one skein and I'm going to go home and do a swatch. And if the swatch is nice, I will go back and get the yarn. That was the first thing. That was the first thing I did when I got home, was I sat down, I pulled out my yarn, wound it up, and I did a swatch. And I loved it. I loved it so much. It created literally the perfect brown that I wanted. Could it be darker? Yeah. I think it's not, I wouldn't call it a deep chocolate brown. I think I would call it like kind of in the middle of like a milk chocolate and a dark chocolate, if we're talking like candy wise. But it was what I envisioned. And I know now that I probably have this, I haven't been back to the yarn store because I've put myself on a yarn buying halt, but I know that I will probably see the most perfect brown in the entire world now that I have these two browns together, but it's okay. So these are the two I'm holding together, and I really like it. I think it's working out really well. I wasn't completely sold on mohair before, but after swatching it, I was like, this is the way. This is the way to go. I'm going to do it. And so I did. And so I started, and this has been working out pretty quick. I know it doesn't seem like I have a lot, but oh, it looks so good. It looks very warm on camera, but it's really not. It's not that warm. So this pattern comes from my Knitting for Olive book that I got from Christmas, and you can also buy it on Ravelry or the Knitting for Olive site. It's a top-down wrap construction. So basically, I'm only probably 25% of the way done, but you start with the straps. You just do long, kind of 12-stitch 2x2 ribbing, and then you cast on a bunch of stitches and then work from there. And then you work decreases at the very front where the strap meets the body, and that's going to give you kind of like the V-neck part of the pattern. So yeah, that's how much I have. I'm about halfway done the decreases, so it works up very fast for working flat. I am not a big fan of working flat, but I am a big fan of cardigans and things like that, so I'm coming to love it. I definitely find the 2x2 ribbing to be a pretty big breeze to work through. I don't have any issues with it. Like I said earlier in the video, I'm really into 2x2 ribbing lately. I like the look of it, and I find it easier to work than 1x1 ribbing. The one thing I will say about this pattern is I only have the book version, so I can't speak for if the digital version is different or not. I've seen some things because I was looking on Ravelry. So when you connect the straps together, you basically cast on 3 different sets. You cast on so-and-so stitches for the side, the back, and then the other side. So, and it has you place markers, one at the end of your strap stitches, and then one after the side, one after the back, and then another before the start of the other strap stitches. And you have to work a couple short rows to get let me show you. There is kind of I don't know how to call it. I don't want to call it a hole, but it is kind of like a hole where you're going to be able to put the other strap in to wrap, if you can see that. Yeah, so you work short rows kind of until there. So when working short rows, it wasn't very specific about which marker to go to. It has you start on one side, and then it says until next marker and this and that. So I assumed it was the next marker that it had us place, because after you connect everything, you kind of go right into the short rows. So there wasn't a lot of other stuff in between. So I was doing that, and then after towards the end of the short rows, once you're done making the strap hole, it tells you you kind of finish your short rows, and it tells you to go to the opposite stitch marker and start doing decreases. So what I had interpreted that as was to the next stitch marker, where you kind of went to for the short rows and do decreases. And I was in about 2 decreases in, and I was like, this doesn't make any sense. Because you were doing decreases for where the strap meets the body to get the angled, but you weren't doing any decreases on the other side of the strap. And so and this is probably my fault for maybe not reading it correctly, because it does say opposite. I wasn't really sure what opposite meant at the time. Looking back, I understand it now. And so I was looking on Ravelry before I got too in-depth to the decreases, and I saw somebody mention that it doesn't say which stitch marker to go to for the decreases, and I was like, oh my god, that's a problem. I'm having too. So I looked, and then I realized I'm supposed to go to the complete opposite side of the strap and do decreases there. So you're decreasing at both the strap sizes. So that's the only problem that I've had so far with the pattern. I've never knitted a Knitting for Olive pattern before, so this is my first experience, but after I figured that out, it made sense, and I have no problems now. But it was just something that kind of, I don't know. I don't want to say annoyed me, because it wasn't wrong. There was nothing wrong in the pattern, but I guess the choice of words could have been clearer for me personally. And then I kind of felt a little crazy, because it took me quite a long time to find that note about the decreases, and I was like, oh man, am I the only one having this problem? Like, am I stupid? No, but I mean, maybe I was a little bit, but yeah, I really enjoy working on it though. After figuring that out, it's been a breeze so far. This is my first bottom up pattern too, so I'm a little nervous once we get past the decreases. I haven't looked towards the pattern yet, because I want to focus on the decreases, but I don't think there's a lot of shaping. I think there is some shaping like around here for the armholes and stuff, but it is a wrap, so there's not really, it's very loose and flexible, so there's not a lot of like, I mean, we have stitch markers. I've left mine. I don't know if I still need to leave mine, but I've left mine for like the front, the back, and the other front, just in case. It didn't tell me to remove, so I'm going to keep them, but I'm sure that will all come into play once we get past the decreases and up towards the top part. But I think it's coming along really nicely. It's working up pretty fast, and yeah, I'm happy to have the brown that I wanted and get that going. I think it's going to be a beautiful spring top that I can wear. So that is all of my works right now. I don't have any yarn acquisitions necessarily. The yarn acquisitions that I had was the Knitting for Olive, Cotton Merino, and then obviously the yarn I bought for the wrap. I think I briefly talked about my other purchase of Drops Air, which is this Drops Air Gray. The same color that I did my Rory sweater in. That is going to be a darling cardigan for myself once I finish probably my roommate's gloves. And then I'm really hoping to continue working on my koi cardigan. I kind of just put it off for a little bit because it is quite difficult to work on. The actual knitting itself is not hard, but there's 3 different charts I have to look at, so it's not something I can really like bring with me anywhere or like sit and watch TV with. I really have to kind of lock in and focus on that. So I've been kind of putting it off, but I would like to finish it definitely before summer, which I think I will be able to, because I don't have any current, well, the darling cardigan is kind of one I want to get done before spring or before summer. And then I am going to the North Carolina Fiber Fest. I guess it is next week now, isn't it? Oh no. But I have to figure out what patterns I want to choose to look for yarn there. So I think I'm going to choose something off my Make 9. I'm debating if I want to choose a like cable sweater quantity, which I think I probably will. It's either that or I believe it's called the Fennel cardigan from Florence Miller. So we'll see. I'll have to look and figure out what kind of yarn I want to look for while we're there, because I would like to pick up some new yarn. But yeah, that is all for today's podcast. I feel like I had a ton to talk about. Really happy to have some finished objects, my first finished objects of the podcast officially, aside from the small photo card holder I had last time, but these are like the first finished garments, which is really nice. And I hope next time I can have a couple more. I don't know how much more knitting I will do in the next 2 weeks, just because one, I have the knitting festival, well, not knitting festival, fiber festival, which I will try to vlog if I remember the camera. And then I am also going to a convention this weekend in South Carolina, so that'll be a whole day not knitting, but I will definitely have a podcast, hopefully sooner rather than later, out and not wait like a whole almost month next time. But thank you so much if you made it to the end of this video. I know I talked a bunch, but if you like what you see, feel free to subscribe, or you can follow me on Instagram for more kind of frequenter updates. I also share a lot of other people's creations and tester calls and things like that. So, and free patterns over there from other creators that I follow. So if you're interested in that, feel free to follow me there, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!